Itch it up, my selector.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
I know you gonna dig this.
And happy Saturday, February 17th, a little post-Valentine's Day sucker punch. This is Maestro, and I'm here with my brother, Mr. Joe Habib. And look, early, mid-February is supposed to be all about love, right? But one organization that hasn't been getting a lot of love, and I am talking about Amazon Prime, and specifically the PBC with its deal with Amazon Prime. There's a lot of information being floated around, a lot of speculation, and dare I say, just a lot of ignorance, possibly even dishonesty. We're going to break it all down for you because, look, this fight didn't happen. And we're going to get into the X's and O's of why it didn't happen. And I'm talking about Ryan Garcia and Romero. We're going to get into that. Joe Habib, how's it going, brother?
What's going on? Time to just put the truth out there. The old saying that I've heard, Chris Rock said this to Bill Maher when Bill Maher asked him, why did Donald Trump win the election? And he responded quite simply, when someone kills one person, you don't have to go out and lie and say they killed 10, right? So if someone has enough things on them that you can criticize them about, basically, why go out of your way to just make up flat out lies about that person when you already have enough ammunition to criticize them about? We can't reinvent words. We can't just flat out say things that are fundamentally impossible, fundamentally incorrect, just because we don't like somebody or something or some company or some entity. Because what happens when we start doing that is boxing journalism already has lost so much credibility as it is. People laugh at boxing because it's kind of turned into TMZ. You go on Twitter and it's a cesspool. And obviously you and I can't do anything to change that. But what we can do is we're responsible for our own posts, or we're responsible for putting out correct information on our behalf, right? And if we could do anything to stop propagating these ridiculous statements that are being put out there by Rick Glacier, and I'm not here to bash Rick Glacier. I'm not going to sit there and go into a lot of things I know about the guy and why he's really not credible. But one thing I can guarantee you is there's absolutely nobody over at PBC that he could ever talk to that will be able to give him any financial information in regards to the BBC. You know, And if you look at recent history, you could see that even when you look at DAZN, how they re-upped their deal with Matchroom for USA and Mexico. ESPN has that deal with Top Rank, that 7-year deal. Neither company and neither platform released financial information to either deal. So now all of a sudden, because PBC and Amazon, you don't have the particulars where before you once did, you had the financial information with the Showtime deal and the Fox deal. But now, if you look at boxing now, a lot of the promotional companies now, they're giving you less and less information for a reason. They don't want to put things out there that could be used against them. Now, if the pay-per-view numbers aren't great, of course they're not going to put them out there. But that still doesn't give people carte blanche to grossly misreport and minimize the actual numbers. Like, if you're going to sit there and say that a fight only did 61,000 pay-per-view buys and you have no information to support that, and it just sounds ridiculous that you would even say that when you don't have the information. And you can go back to the days when HBO used to do those same-day weigh-ins. All this stuff that you had access to before, you don't have access to it anymore. Because the press has become so tribal, right? A lot of these promotional companies, they don't want to feed in to this tribal behavior. They don't want to feed into this, so they're a lot more secretive now of what they're going to tell the press and what they're not going to tell the press. And as a result of that, people feel as though they have carte blanche to just assume things. Oh, well, they're not telling us this. There must be a reason why. And all of a sudden, now we can just make shit up when the stuff's not confirmed. There's absolutely no way Rick Glacier would ever know, right, the things he's talking about. I know some of the things, and I can confirm with 100% certainty and factually what he's saying is wrong, right? I can definitely confirm what he's saying is wrong, 100%, right? And I'm not going to go into details why, but I know what he's saying is 100% factually incorrect. D-Style knows 100% factually that he's incorrect. All right? We know what a lot of the things he's saying. And that's not because I'm special. That's not anything, because we have fringe contacts within that area, right? And there's things that we're told that we can't go into detail about as well, right? And we're not PR people, but the thing is this: we can't just turn this sport, the boxing media, into TMZ, and that's what's happening. We can't say things that are factually incorrect. We can't reinvent what words mean. We can't reinvent how things are done in an attempt to make somebody look bad or a company look bad. There's got to be a level of integrity here.
100%.
That's all I'm saying.
100%. And if you're live with us right now, whether you're on X, formerly Twitter, whether you're on YouTube, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel here on YouTube, hit the subscriber button, because this is one of the best boxing outlets out there to get information on the fights, to get analysis on the fights, and of course on the business of boxing. We're here doing Sucker Punch because guess what? We want to prepare you for the sucker punch. We want to help you catch and shoot. We want to help you slip that punch, block that punch, parry that punch, and counter that punch with the facts. So look, I got to tell you something, Joe. One of the strangest things I heard recently was about the fact that Amazon Prime, by the way, Amazon is one of the biggest corporations in the world.
Worth $1.7 trillion.
Somehow would not or might not be able to come up with Canelo's guarantee of $35 million.
I don't even know what the guarantee is, but that's what's being floated out there.
I mean,
That's his guarantee.
his guarantee could be $100 million. I mean, that's like a you know, when you're doing those little eye drops, right? That's like an eye drop into the ocean in terms of Amazon's finances. I saw a report here in New York City, and the fact is, just in New York City, Amazon loses millions of dollars worth of packages every single day. So just in New York City. So the idea that Amazon, this huge corporation, somehow might not be able to come up with Canelo's guarantee, I mean, we're just going into silly season, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't understand it. Look, you may not like the PBC. It may not be a cup of tea. You may not like ESPN Top Rank. You may not like Matchroom DAZN or Golden Boy DAZN. But your dislike of a particular brand or outlet or boxing promotion should not lead to you spreading or believing just outlandish kinds of statements. Joe, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, a rights agreement is a rights agreement. Amazon just paid, or they're going to be paying, they entered an agreement with the NFL where they're going to be paying them like $11 billion. And I'm trying to remember, I think they're going to be paying them $1.2 billion a year. It's on the internet. They're going to be paying them $1.2 billion a year. And I think it's for, I want to say 5 to 7 years. I don't know the particulars, but they're paying them buku amounts of money, right? Let me see if I can just pull that up. I want to be correct in what I'm saying here.
I'll pull it up for you right here, Joe. You don't worry about that. I got you covered. I got you covered right here. The Amazon deal, as reported by NBC News, and I'm going to share so that all of our wonderful viewers can also.
11 year deal. It's a
rights deal. Amazon gets exclusive Thursday night rights. The new agreement runs through 2033 and will feature 2 Super Bowls, returning to Disney's ABC network channel. Amazon is paying about $1 billion per year.
Correct.
The people familiar with the matter, Viacom, CBS, Fox, and Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, are all paying more than $2 billion per year for their packages, while Disney, which owns ESPN and ABC, will pay around $2.7 billion annually, according to people familiar with the matter. Go for it, Joe.
Okay. So that's what a rights agreement is. Amazon entered a rights agreement, right? They've signed a rights agreement with PBC, right? So when you enter a rights agreement, it is not a time buy. That means you have agreed to pay that company, property, whatever it is you're dealing with, which is PBC in this case. You are paying PBC the rights. You are paying PBC the rights to show their content, right? You're paying for exclusivity. You have committed to a specific amount of events a year, and you have a budget, right? Amazon is not funding PBC, are they? Are they just, again, they entered a rights agreement. It is not a time buy. You can't reinvent what a rights agreement is. If a platform and network pays another entity the rights to show their events, they are paying them a fee. Amazon is 110% paying PBC. PBC 110% has a budget. Okay, so you can't reinvent what a rights agreement is. What does distribution only mean? Like that does. What do you mean by their distribution only? Of course, they're paying for distribution. That is a rights agreement. They are paying them exclusivity for a specific. It's a right. Read what this says. A multi-year rights agreement for pay-per-views and championship bouts and behind-the-scenes docuseries and more. They are paying PBC to show their product. It is a rights agreement.
Let me jump in there real quick, Joe. For all of the people that say distribution only, define what that would mean.
What does that mean, distribution only?
1 second, Joe. What would that mean with a
What does that mean?
behind-the-scenes docu-series? How do you do a distribution only? Like, what does that mean? What, PBC creates a docu-series to go out on Amazon Prime, and
It's not a time buy.
Amazon Prime pays them only to distribute it? Like, I don't understand how that's computing to people, what that means to them.
Calix asks, what's Amazon's budget? What's ESPN's budget with Top Rank? What's DAZN's budget with Matchroom? But nobody knows, because they don't release the information.
I'm gonna go to HLD. By the way, HLD is one of my favorite dudes out there. All right, HLD. Gotta check him out. Pay-per-views only though, HLD. I'm not understanding, because we're reading it right on the screen. Prime Video is set to become the home of PBC's pay-per-view events, championship bouts, behind-the-scenes docu-series, and more. Now, I don't know, Joe, but would Prime allow such a notice to go out if it weren't true? Like, they
put their name on this press release.
They'd have it taken down. It clearly says pay-per-view events, championship bouts, behind-the-scenes docu-series, and more. So, no, it's not just for pay-per-views only. Unless I'm missing something in terms of reading.
It's not $100 million for Top Rank, because we have the article where, when Dan Raphael worked for ESPN, he actually broke the news of the 7-year deal between ESPN and Top Rank, and we have that article. And Maestro can post that art, can show you that article, because it does not disclose financial information. Okay, we have all the receipts here to support everything we're saying. There's no, and then when Eddie Hearn and Matchroom re-upped with DAZN for 3 years, there's nothing in this article that says the financial information. And the DAZN article as well.
So here we go. This is courtesy of Dan Raphael.
Where's the financial information? Where's the financial information in this deal? There's nothing here that lists the numbers.
Top
Dan Raphael was working for ESPN at the time, right? So is he going to lie?
I'll go through some of this. I'll skim it real quick, Joe. Top Rank Boxing reaches new 7-year deal with ESPN. This was reported by Dan Raphael when he was ESPN senior writer back in August of 2018. There will be a lot more Top Rank Boxing on ESPN for years to come. On Thursday, the promotional company and network announced a new 7-year contract they called the most comprehensive exclusive rights agreement in the history of boxing, quote unquote. Now, if we continue to scroll down,
there's no financial information in this deal. Why isn't anyone asking if ESPN can pay Top Rank?
There's no mention.
There's no dollar.
$100 million. There's no mention of 200 million or 500 million or 1 billion. It's not out there. It's not official. So any numbers that people are coming up with, and by the way, we're going to go
the DAZN one. Show the DAZN one.
We're going to talk about ESPN in part 2 of the show on my channel. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking about ESPN. But if you look at the DAZN release, it's quite similar, and we're going to show that one right here. This is courtesy directly of Matchroom, press release. All right, here we go. This was May 2nd, 2023. So just last year, Matchroom and DAZN Inc. 3-year extension to USA and Mexico broadcast deals.
Where's the financial information? Where's the financial information for this deal?
Global promotional powerhouse and streaming giants pen packed through 2026. Matchroom and DAZN are delighted to announce a 3-year extension to their broadcast deals in the USA and Mexico. A deal further cements Matchroom as a true global leader in boxing, while also confirming DAZN as the home of global combat sports, with the platform available in over 200 territories. You keep going through the article.
There's no dollar amount, right?
No mention of numbers. No
So
mention of numbers at all.
so does the zone, because there's no dollar amount listed, does that mean the zone doesn't have the money?
I would say that is definitely not what it means, Joe. But look,
Okay.
we can continue going through some of the information we have here. I'm just quite perplexed. Here's the thing that perplexes me the most. All right. I'm a boxing fan, a hardcore fan. I've watched everything from Pinoy Power, Heavyweight Explosion, Latin Fury pay-per-views, up to the Jojo Diaz fight. Last Thursday, a couple days ago. I'll be up at 4 a.m. watching Inoue, not the super bantamweight Inoue, but the bantamweight Inoue. In a few days, I'll be up at 4 a.m. watching that. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm a huge boxing fan, in addition to working in the sport of boxing. So I'm not out here hoping that any particular outlet fails, but it's very interesting to me that there are people who really seem to want the zone to fail, and then there are other people that really want to see Matchroom fail. And I just don't quite understand, as a boxing fan, why people would seem so eager to want these deals to not work, to fail, for fights not to happen. Joe, go for it. The floor is yours.
I guess going back to what we already said, and then we're going to post some other information that's directly from Amazon themselves, actually confirming that there is a budget. And then we can also post information that Steven Espinosa had put out there on Twitter as well, and he's been working with PBC. Now, again, if you want to criticize the fact they have no schedule, you want to criticize the fact that their fighters are inactive, you can honestly easily criticize the fact that they don't like to do co-promoted events, and they're hard to deal with, right? You could argue all those things, but the thing about this being a time buy, when it's clearly been reported by Amazon themselves that they've entered a rights agreement with PBC, they're paying PBC for the rights, where before, when it was a time buy, when they were using Waddell and Reed's money, the hedge fund company, when they were actually paying networks for time to show the events, this is a rights agreement. A rights agreement is not a time buy agreement. Now, they aren't handling the production. So when they were on Showtime, one thing you have to give Showtime credit for is they did a good job with production. With the promotion, when they did those all accesses and stuff, that was all Steven Espinosa. So you could argue right now, of course, that press conference was shit, right? Amazon had nothing to do with that press conference because, again, Amazon is not in charge of the production. With the press conferences, the promotional stuff, right? They're leaving that up to PBC, right? And PBC may not have a team in place right now. You could argue that's the reason why that was so shitty, and they're just trying to find people and put together a promotional or a production team, because once again, they never had to do that before because Showtime handled that for them. But now now that they're not with Showtime, they don't have a production team anymore. So now they have to put one together themselves. And Steven Espinosa has come out and said that he's helping them out with that. And maybe that's going to take a little time. Regardless, the press conference sucked. But again, our boxing press conference is really good anyway. Like who really does do a good job?
I've attended more press conferences probably than most people in this chat, and it's not to brag, but they're not even press conferences anymore, guys. Like, press doesn't get to ask questions. It's you go to a Matchroom show and it's Eddie Hearn asking the fighter questions. You go to a top-ranked ESPN show and it's Mark Chinook asking the fighters the questions. They're not press conferences. Sometimes they host post-fight press conferences where we get to ask questions, and that's where I asked Dimitri Bivol about how he felt about not having his anthem played, for example, after the Canelo fight in Vegas, or where I asked Arthur Betterbeeb about the significance of the fact that he's going to be fighting a fellow countryman for the undisputed title, which I did in Quebec City at a post-fight press conference. But the press conferences to announce the fight, they're just PR. They're just PR events. Joe, go for it.
Yeah, like who really does do a good job? Like when have you ever watched the press conference and say, "Wow, like what a phenomenal job this was"? Now, I will argue one incident that happened at a press conference when Canelo slapped Caleb Plant. I think that helped out the fight a little bit. That kind of added a little intrigue. But for the most part, I know you're not going to like this, but UFC does a pretty good job with their press conference because they at least allow the press to ask questions instead of the promoter. So they do it like boxing across the board does a shitty job at press conferences. But I will argue that was even poorer than most. Okay. So they need to put together a production team. They need to put together a promotional team. They need to do better. There's no question about that. You want to argue that? Fine. You want to argue that they have no fight scheduled? Fine. You want to argue that they're hard to deal with? Fine. You want to argue that, when Mayweather said, okay, we don't want to make another promoter rich, they care more about the company than they do the fighters. Like there's situations where both the fighter and the promotional company can win. To me, when you hear a promoter say we don't want to make another promotional company rich, that's the wrong thing to say. Your job is to make your fighter rich alongside your company. So we're going to get into the Rolly Romero situation, but I kind of want to go further with this rights agreement and explain.
We're going to
show this is actual information from Amazon themselves. So let the people know this stuff.
Right. So we've gone over the announcement that went out, with the graphic here. And again, if this wasn't true, Prime wouldn't have co-signed it, and this would be down. You wouldn't be able to find it. Amazon is obviously a huge corporation, one of the biggest in the world. They'd never allow information like this to go out if it weren't true. So we have that. I'll read over this one too. This was part of the initial press release. We are thrilled to join with Premier Boxing Champions. So this is obviously from Amazon. We are thrilled to join with Premier Boxing Champions to bring the best boxers in the world to Prime Video and to give more fans than ever the chance to experience these must-see events. Marie Donahue, VP, U.S. Sports Content and Partnerships, Amazon said in a news release, with live coverage of PBC action throughout the calendar year, Prime Video continues to bring viewers in the U.S. and around the world the best in sports. PBC has a stable of more than 150 fighters, including some of the sport's biggest stars like Canelo Alvarez and Gervonta Davis. Amazon Prime members will be able to access all PBC non-pay-per-view boxing events at no extra cost. Prime Video will also distribute PBC's pay-per-view events. Prime Video acquired the rights to Thursday Night Football in an 11-year deal through 2032 worth $13.2 billion. It is unknown how much Amazon paid for the rights to PBC. PBC previously had Showtime and Fox as its broadcast partners. Over the last few years, Showtime's parent company, Paramount, cut the premium cable's division's sports division in 2023. The last PBC on Fox event was 2022. I don't know. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
So they paid the rights. They paid the rights to show PBC events. So just like they paid the NFL $13.2 billion, or they're going to be paying them, they also are going to be paying PBC. So you don't know.
Yeah. Let's go to the next one over here. As I pull up what we have to review. right over here. Bear with me. I've got it. Here we go. Prime Video has acquired the rights to broadcast Premier Boxing Champions on a multi-year deal. Amazon and PBC announced this week. The first PBC on Prime Video event is expected to be in March. So, I mean, even when this was announced, they pretty much made it clear that the first fight wouldn't happen until March. You've got another one here, Joe. Down at the bottom. Oh, actually, we've gone through that one already. Let's go to the next one. And here we've got Steven Espinoza responding to somebody on Twitter. Hashtag Mr. Pullup stated, still undisclosed after being announced December 7th. I'm pretty sure Kopp and Raphael posted the contract numbers shortly after Fox deal was announced. And Steven Espinoza responded, and he tagged you in this too, Joe Habib. So unless the network releases the financial terms, there's no money in the deal. Great theory, super intelligent. And there you go.
Sure. Do the other one too. The other one where he actually confirms. There's one that I sent you that he actually confirms there's actually a budget.
Okay, I'll look to find that one right now, Joe. But yeah, just elaborate a little bit more on what we're saying here about the lack of an announced budget, not being indicative, of not being money.
So once again, there's no announced budget for the re-up of the zone deal with Eddie Hearn, and there's with United States and Mexico. He did in 2023. They did a new 3-year deal extension, and we already posted that press release from the zone themselves, and they did not release the amount of money for that deal. So does that mean that they don't have the money now? That's what we have to. That's what I want to know. Does that mean that they don't have the money now? ESPN, when they did their 7-year deal, when, like we said, Dan Raphael broke it, there's no money that was released. So just because they don't tell you the money amount, that means they don't have the money. How could Amazon, which is a $1.7 trillion company, they already said themselves they acquired the rights to show PBC events. That means they're paying PBC a budget. And I just sent you the link here where Steven Espinoza, someone asked Steven Espinoza that if Amazon is giving PBC a budget, and he confirms it right here. So
yeah, I got it. I'll have it on screen. And
you don't know the financials of the top ranked zone deal. I called Bob Arum up, and I have an interview with Bob Arum, and I asked him, and he actually said he doesn't know himself. We don't know the numbers. The numbers have not been released. We already showed you. That the numbers have not been released.
So look, if anyone is disagreeing with any of this or wants to
go on the internet,
more,
go on the internet,
thorough, comprehensive discussion about this with us, feel free. Joe Habib has dropped the link. Joe, you can drop it again, and I pin it so that it stays there above all of the comments. So here we go. This is what Joe was referring to. It's an exchange on Twitter, and we've got a guy here, Yusa Fanzone Lie, who says, so Amazon is, what does he say here, is giving PBC a budget or not? And Steven Espinoza responds, of course they are. So they are giving them a budget, unless, of course, people are then.
And then he asks him about the pay-per-view events and all that.
Will every fight be on pay-per-view, or are you guys thinking of making some free as well? Espinoza responds, some will be on pay-per-view, some will be non-pay-per-view on Prime Video. There you go. So look, Amazon's backing the PBC. It's literally one of the biggest companies in the world. It's worth over $1 trillion. They obviously have the money to come up with a Canelo.
Listen, look what HLD says. To Top Rank is like 90 million 108 yearly card, and DAZN saved by the investors in the you don't know that. You have no way of knowing that. It's not been released. Because first of all, Top Rank is not a publicly traded company, and neither is DAZN. So they're not required to release their financial information. So again, you don't know that. You have no way of knowing that. We just showed you the press release from DAZN where they announced that they re-upped 3 years with Eddie Hearn in United States and Mexico. There's no financial information in that deal. So again, you can't assume that someone doesn't have money because they're not, like, all you got to do is Google all this stuff. It's a rights agreement. So
this one here just seems like projection to me. I mean, nobody's crying.
What are we crying about? We're telling you something.
We're explaining facts.
What's the problem?
So Joe, let's get into it. Because we did say we were going to talk about this. Why didn't it happen? So this fight obviously didn't happen. It's not happening. We thought it might happen. But let's get into the here's why. Joe, go for it.
So I'm going to take you back to Tank Davis versus Ryan Garcia, because that was a fight actually that Ryan had asked for a while, right? He's been nudging at Tank. He called Tank out probably for at least maybe a year and a half, 2 years before that fight actually happened. And the fight just never happened. And I find it quite convenient that all of a sudden the fight happens when Tank is no longer signed to Mayweather Promotions. That was pretty convenient, right? So Raleigh is signed to Mayweather Promotions, right? And Floyd was doing those runs with Ryan and stuff. So we know what Floyd was trying to do. Floyd did want to make that fight, without question. Floyd wanted to make that fight. But here's the thing. Floyd wanted that fight to be exclusively on Amazon pay-per-view, right? They didn't want to share it with Prime, right? Now, they wanted to be in charge of everything, right? Because you just entered an agreement with Amazon, right? PBC, and Raleigh's a PBC fighter, but Raleigh is also a Mayweather Promotions fighter. So you could argue that Floyd kind of fucked Raleigh, right? Because if Floyd did say, okay, we'll make that fight, we'll allow it to be exclusively on DAZN, right? We'll allow that. Then that fight could have been made, and then he could have been a headliner in a pay-per-view with Ryan. But because they wanted to beef up that March 30 pay-per-view, right? They wanted to try to legitimize it as a pay-per-view. They put that as the co-feature or on the undercard, I should say, of the Keith Thurman Tim Tszyu event, right? So when Steve Kim says platform protection, yeah, I mean, I understand that. So Raleigh gets fucked, but Mayweather Promotions wins here because they get to have their, be part of an event. They don't have to divide it up with DAZN and Oscar De La Hoya, right? And now they have exclusivity to this event. And you heard Floyd say, we don't want to make another promoter rich. So because Floyd doesn't want to do Oscar De La Hoya any favors, they don't want to go out of their way to do DAZN any favors, right? And even when that fight was being shown on DAZN with Tank and Ryan, they were using, like, Showtime did all the production. They did not use their production team. They were just basically simulcasting the event on DAZN, right? Explain that.
I want to jump in on that right there. So people will say, but Joe and Maestro, they were able to do it between Showtime and DAZN. Yeah, well, that was different because Showtime was primarily distributed through cable and satellite. Streaming, is what was not their primary way of distributing their pay-per-views, right? Yet DAZN was. So at that point, you had essentially a cable provider sharing the fight with a streaming platform, that didn't kind of impact the majority of its business. In this case, I don't think Amazon Prime, which is exclusively a streaming platform, they're not on cable, they're not on satellite, is going to want to divvy up the pizza pie with another strictly streaming platform in the zone. They're not going to do that, nor are they going to do that for their very first few fights, whether it's Tim Tszyu against Keith Thurman, or whether it's Javante against whoever he's going to be fighting. This is the first year of their deal. I don't think they're going to be splitting their streaming with anyone, whether it's ESPN Plus or DAZN, in their first year of this deal. That may come later on, but there's that aspect. And then on the other side of it, there's no way Oscar and Golden Boy are going to just allow Ryan to go and fight on Amazon Prime without the zone being involved. We've already seen Oscar's stance on that when it came to Munguia versus Charlo. You remember that fight, right, Joe?
Yes, and the problem here too is, once again, Raleigh is signed to Mayweather Promotions on for multiple fights, so he can't just say, "Okay, I'm going to go over to DAZN and fight Ryan." He's locked into a promotional contract, and he's not the A side in this situation, so they have no leverage, right?
Absolutely.
So you just entered a deal with, like you said, with Amazon, right? And now it's not like a network. It's another digital platform. They're not gonna right off the bat split up the pie in one of the first events. So Raleigh doesn't have leverage, and Mayweather Promotions doesn't have leverage here. So what Floyd was trying to do was he was trying to get Ryan to come over to Amazon and have Amazon do that fight exclusively. But once they found out that wasn't going to be the case, and once they found out that Oscar wanted Raleigh to go over to DAZN, that's why that fight did. That you want to blame someone for that fight not happening, right? Blame Floyd Mayweather. And all this shit you're hearing Raleigh say right now, he's being fed these talking points by Floyd, just like Ryan was being fed talking points by Floyd. And he was being manipulated to go against his promotional company.
I've also got to go into just some basic facts, okay? When a fighter is signed to a promoter, a fighter isn't just allowed to say, you know what? My next fight, even though I'm signed to Mayweather, I'd like to fight on a Queensbury card. My next fight, even though I'm signed to Mayweather, you know what? I feel like fighting for on a Top Rank card, or I feel like fighting on a Matchroom card. That's not how it works.
Now,
Okay,
Raleigh,
1 second, Joe. All of these people saying, Raleigh's the R word, for mental impairment or whatever the case may be, because he didn't take the fight. He's not allowed to just go and
couldn't take that fight. He's not under contract.
He's not allowed to do that. He can't just say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to fight Ryan on DAZN without his promoter's consent. The only way fighters usually end up fighting on another platform, and you can look at the Teofimo Lopez versus Gambosis example of this, or if fights go to purse bids, right? That's one way, right? Another promoter wins the purse bid for a fight, but those usually only happen when a mandatory is called, or if two guys are fighting for a vacant title, whatever the case may be. The other way that it happens is obviously, and this is a very new and unique situation to the sport, and we're going to get into that in part 2 of the discussion on my channel, is when a figure like His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh gets involved and essentially becomes the financial backer of the entire card, of the entire promotion, removing the need for network backing for the fights to happen. Does that make sense, Joe?
100%. So if you want to, Floyd really fucked Raleigh over in this case, because he's the reason why Raleigh's fighting on the undercard. Floyd and PBC are using Raleigh, right, to beef up this pay-per-view event. That's why. And Raleigh and they're not, Raleigh being the B side would have to go over to DAZN, because even though it's a decent sized fight, it's still not the same size fight as Tank Ryan, right? So to do a co-promoted event, the fights usually have to be monsters in order for that to happen. right? And this is a decent sized fight, Ryan and Raleigh, but there's still a lot of unknown there. We don't know. Like, it's not going to be even remotely as big as that Tank Davis Ryan Garcia fight was. So Floyd is basically, if Steve Kim uses that word platform protection, that's 100% correct. They're putting the promotional company and the platform first, and putting their interests first over the fighter. Whereas with Top Rank puts fighters in win-win situations where they win and the fighter wins. Whereas we've seen PBC on more than one occasion, because of these statements by Floyd, and because of their personal beefs with other promoters and other networks. When you hear people over at the PBC say, "Oh, we'll never go over to DAZN," like, why would you ever use language like that? If the business is right, then the business is right. That's the thing. So they don't care about the business. They just care about personal feelings. They say to themselves, "Oh, we can make money without these guys, and we don't care." Now, the Floyd Pacquiao fight was so big, and there had to be a mediator jump in there, right? Where we had Les Moonves from CBS jump in there, and he had to be the mediator. That's how that fight got done. But for the most part, when you look at the PBC stable and you look at Floyd Mayweather and Mayweather Promotions in general, they go out of their way to not do co-promoted events. They don't care about putting the fighter in the biggest fights possible.
I mean,
they just want to be in control of the situation, because it's with them, it's a lot of personal feelings and egos. A lot of people over there, the way they operate based off of personal feelings and egos. And Bob, when you look at Bob over the years, and even Oscar over the years, they'll do the best deal possible. They'll take away the emotion, the personal feelings. For years, Floyd was saying, "Oh, well, I can't fight Pacquiao. Me and Bob Arum got problems. Oh, I don't want to make another promotional company rich." And you heard, even guys like what's his name there, Spencer Sampson Lukowitz say, "Oh, well, the fight the fight has to be on DAZN. The fight can't be on DAZN. The fight has to be on PBC with David and Canelo." You know what I'm saying? Like, so again, there's much to criticize that side of the street for, but to make up things about what a rights agreement is, and saying it's a time buy when it's not a time buy, and trying to say that Amazon doesn't have the money to pay PBC, and then PBC doesn't, and then all this escrow bullshit. Like, there's enough shit to criticize PBC on, right? Why do we got to make stupid things up?
No, I mean, it's like you said at the beginning. If somebody kills one person, you don't have to say they.
Yeah, if someone goes out and kills one person, you don't have to lie and say they killed 10. Like, you want to criticize PBC, you got more than enough ammunition to do so. So they only have one fight scheduled, and we're in March. That's a problem.
No,
for Sampson to say, "Oh, if Benavidez fights Canelo, it has to be on Showtime, or has to be on or whatever the PBC's network is," that's retarded. I can't even use that word. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. I don't want to get canceled for using the R word.
Well, Nando in the chat, salute to Nando, by the way. He came up with a word stated a word that I think is a good substitute. It's remedial. That's the one I'm using.
So the reason why that fight with Ryan and Raleigh didn't get made, Steve Kim is correct. They're putting the platform and the promotional company over the fighter. Now, you could say, "Well, Beeb, isn't that smart business?" Now, you can look at it that way, but here's the thing. Imagine if Raleigh, because I still think that's a winnable fight for Raleigh. Imagine if Raleigh were to beat Ryan Garcia. What would happen to Raleigh? You don't think that would increase his profile? So then when you come back to PBC, then you're a bigger name, you're a bigger star, and that in turn, if you're playing the long game, that helps the promotional company. Sort of like what Eddie Hearn did with Devin Haney, right? He's like, "Okay, go over there, go over to Top Rank, become undisputed champion, and then when you come back to me, what happens? You're a bigger name. You're a bigger star. PBC don't do business that way. They don't look at things like that. Everything is about egos. Oh, we're personal feelings and stuff like that. Well, we're not going to do business with that guy because we don't like him. That's not how Eddie Hearn works. That's not how Frank Warren works. And that's not how Bob Arum ever worked. Bob Arum would do a deal with the devil if he knew the deal was right. That's just not how they do business over there. So if you want to say they log jam things up, they prevent, they're the biggest antagonists for blocking big fights. I'm on board with that. You want to make fun of the production for that press conference? I'm on board with that. You want to make fun of how they keep, for the most part, most of their fighters are inactive, and they don't have what all the fighters they have such a anemic schedule. Those are all legitimate things to criticize them about, right? And making statements like, "Oh, we don't want to make another promoter rich. Oh, we'll never fight on DAZN. That's an app." And meanwhile, then you're fighting on an app, right? And this whole thing with Paramount Plus, I was 100% wrong with that. I thought Paramount Plus would make a play for PBC. I thought they would. But guess what? They just laid off a whole bunch of more employees. They're cutting a lot more production. So there's a lot of things going on over at Paramount Plus that are far and above and beyond PBC. This wasn't a PBC thing specifically with Paramount. This was a Paramount thing.
No, right? They're shedding weight. And for those of you that don't know, Paramount was actually the owner of Boxing Scene up until 2 days ago. They sold Boxing Scene, the biggest boxing website in the English-speaking world. There are others in other languages, like my guys at boxing.ru. But yeah, Boxing Scene in the English language world is by far the biggest outlet, biggest website. And they were recently sold. You know who bought them? ProBox TV. ProBox bought them. ProBox are the new owners of Boxing Scene. Guess what? Does ProBox have the budget of a Paramount? Absolutely not. So first thing they're going to do is start to shed weight, which they already have started to do. Go for it, Joe.
So Raleigh really did get fucked here. He really did. And Tank was getting fucked for a while too. That's why he left Mayweather Promotions. So now Tank can do whatever he wants. Tank leaves Mayweather Promotions, and his first fight without Mayweather Promotions, what was it? If I'm not mistaken, it was the
biggest fight of last year.
Biggest fight of his life, right?
Yep.
So as long as Raleigh's with Mayweather Promotions, he's gonna have issues. He's gonna have issues because Floyd, first thing he does when he gets up on the podium at a Mayweather Promotions event, talks about himself. He could give two fucks about the future of the sport, the future of boxing. All these things that you hear are a byproduct. All the problems right now that you have in boxing with this A side, B side. We never used to hear A side, B side when Marvin Hagler was fighting Tommy Hearns, or when he was fighting Sugar Ray Leonard, or when Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier. We never heard these things before. When Felix Trinidad fought Oscar De La Hoya, we never heard A side, B side. We never heard, the fight has to be on Showtime. The fight has to be on. These are all Mayweather constructs that people have propagated over the years and fed into, and they continue to feed into.
I mean, this
guy has destroyed the sport.
The biggest fight of my youth was Lennox Lewis versus Tyson, and they made that happen. I mean, that was two big cable outlets joining forces to distribute that fight. It was a huge event. They made it happen. So where there's a will, there's always going to be a way. Absolutely. And you know what? One of the things we're going to be talking about in part 2 is the will of none other than His Excellency himself, Turki Al-Sheikh, who's bringing us some of the biggest fights in boxing, including one of the ones that I'm looking forward to the most, Beterbiev versus Bivol. So we're talking about a kingmaker right there.
Let me just conclude with this. All right. We're going to go with the facts, and then we're going to go with opinion. Right? Facts are, since PBC signed that Amazon deal, there's only one fight on the schedule. That's not a good look. Right? That press conference was ass. It sucked, right? And PBC did a horrible job with that press conference. They need to hire a production team. That's facts. Another fact, Mayweather Promotions fucked over Raleigh, and they put the company before the fighter instead of creating a win-win situation for both parties.
Ding the bell.
They leveraged it overwhelmingly to their benefit, and I'm sure Raleigh's going to make a decent purse, but it's no way near the purse he could have got to fight Ryan. And I do agree with Raleigh. I do think the Isaac Cruz fight is a more difficult fight than the Ryan Garcia fight. I think Ryan Garcia, as crazy as it may sound, I think it's a more winnable fight, in my opinion. I think Raleigh should win. I should win this fight, but I also thought he could beat Ryan Garcia. I thought he was definitely a live dog in the Ryan Garcia fight. I thought that there was more reward. There was a better risk reward situation for him fighting Ryan than there is Isaac Cruz. That's just my opinion, right? So Raleigh did get fucked because Mayweather put his company and needed to beef up that pay-per-view, right? And even still, that's still doesn't warrant that fight, that card with Keith Thurman and Tim Tszyu being on pay-per-view. But that's what they did. So they fucked Raleigh over, and so that's what I believe. There's a strong argument you can say that. So, but here's the thing that's bullshit. Canelo's team didn't give PBC a deadline and tell them that that $35 million needs to be in escrow, or there's going to be a legal problem here. Okay, that's false. Another false thing is a rights agreement is not a time buy. So if anyone is saying that PBC doesn't have a budget or that Amazon can't pay PBC or PBC can't pay, that's 100% false. I can confirm that, and I have confirmed that. We pretty much did confirm that, right? And I can confirm that, right? This whole thing that Canelo's leaving PBC, that's 100% false either. He's got 2 more fights with the option. I also heard there's an option of a 3rd fight, but that's what I heard. But I do know for a fact he's got 2 more fights, and he's not leaving PBC within the near future. He's got 2 more fights with them, guaranteed. Well, so that's a fact. So these things that Glacier said, escrow, timeline, no money, only pay-per-view events going to be shown, no budget, those are all false. Those are 100% false. So again, here's what you can criticize PBC for, in my opinion, and it will be legitimate. Too much fighters are too inactive, block a lot of the big fights, put themselves before the fighter. Not enough fights on the schedule. All facts, in my opinion. Well, you make that argument, but don't say stupid things like a rights agreement is the same as a time buy when it's not.
Plus, you started off by making it clear. I mean, if somebody kills 1 person, you don't state that they murdered 10. There are things that you can legitimately criticize here. I'll drop another one. I mean, there's a lot of hoopla and people speculating about what the whole Canelo announcement was going to be when he was in Mexico, and he obviously announced an extension with TV Azteca, one of the major terrestrial television networks in Mexico, where Canelo fights, by the way, can be seen for free. Look,
Rick Glacier does not have a better batting average than most insiders. I just told you 3 lies he told you. He said PBC didn't have a budget. Wrong. He said Canelo Alvarez demanded money be put in escrow. Wrong. He said Canelo Alvarez was leaving the PBC. Wrong. He said Canelo Alvarez was fighting Jaime Munguia. Wrong. Okay? He said Top Rank was selling their company to the same company that owns the UFC. Wrong. I mean, I just, how does he have a better batting average?
I don't know. And
what are you talking about?
And also, who are the insiders he's comparing him to?
Like most insiders in today's boxing, and what is an insider anyways? Is that really a badge of honor to be called an insider? What do you have to do to become an insider? You got to basically turn yourself for a promotional company or a fighter's team to allow you inside, what do you have to do to get inside? Right? That you have to provide a benefit to them. You have to be somewhat biased to that promotional company, fighter, what have you, to be on the inside. So is that really, that's like the equivalent of being an establishment politician. You have to be part of the machine. So is that really a good thing to call yourself an insider? Because I have to ask, most people that are insiders have to compromise themselves in one way, in one way or another, to get that close inside the camp, or have sources that close inside the promotional company. They're not just going to let you close to them and allow you to say things and reveal things to you if they believe you're going to use that information against them. And here's another thing. How many times have people in the industry put information out there? Bob Arum, yesterday I was lying, today I'm telling the truth. Just because someone tells you something from the inside, can you really always believe that person? All right? So again, being an insider, anyone can be an insider. Does that really give you credibility? Go on Rick Glacier's website right now. And again, I don't want to bash the guy, but I have to just tell the truth. The last time he was a licensed matchmaker was back in 2014. Most of his cards were small shows in the state of Washington, okay? Washington, D.C. area, whatever. So here's the thing. The guy grossly overstates who he is in the business, right? This is what he's done in Box Ring. Tacoma, Washington, right? All of his fights, small shows. He did work with Don King a long time ago, right? But again, if you talk to anyone in the business, right, not many people have a good word to say about Rick Glacier. He's burned a lot of bridges, right? That's why he goes at people the way he does, because he's burned a lot of bridges. He's a bitter old man, and he just goes at people because he's happy. He believes that he's been done wrong in the business, just like Teddy Atlas feels like he's been done wrong in the business. And when people are bitter and they're angry like that, what do? They lash out, and they're overly critical, and they attack, and they're biased against. Okay. So again, that's the thing. There's nobody over at PBC that is going to give Rick Glacier any financial information. Why would they? No one could ever know the intricacies of a deal unless it's publicly released. Even when Joe Rogan, when they announced the Spotify deal, oh, he signed $100 million deal with Spotify. It came out later that it wasn't even $100 million. It was actually $200 million. So again, let's just be real.
Access to sports lawyers, though, Joe.
So yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
That's it.
No, I don't believe Espinosa. I believe Amazon, which is a publicly traded $1.7 trillion company, and they released themselves that they have acquired the rights to broadcast PBC events. So no, I don't just exclusively believe Espinosa, but I do believe Espinosa if he's going to make statements about a publicly traded company, because he's a lawyer and he knows he cannot put out false information about a publicly traded company without being held liable for it. So it is what it is.
No, that's exactly is what it is. Here's the
thing. I believe Amazon. When an executive releases information from Amazon, and they have specifically said that they have purchased the rights to show PBC events, they've acquired the rights. That means that's a rights agreement. That's a rights agreement. There is a budget for a rights agreement. There's a specific amount of the rumor is it's 14. There's a specific, just like the NFL rights agreement. There was an 11-year deal, right? For I think it was $13 billion over 11 years, right? 1.2 billion a year or 1 billion a year, whatever it was. That's a rights agreement. So again, they have the same deal situation for probably far less than that with PBC. So if Amazon is telling you that they have a rights agreement with PBC, it doesn't even matter what Rick Glacier says. They're confirming it. And Steven Espinosa has also confirmed that he is working with PBC, helping them out with production, right? And I would not be surprised if they officially give him a title and he works for PBC, because he was at the last event, and he has inside information because he's actually working with them.
My understanding is that he's now working for them as a consultant.
He's working with them as a consultant, and he's helping them with the production.
Exactly.
That's what he had said publicly.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it is what it is.
Yeah, guys, we've got a ton of people here in the live stream. Hit the like button. This is some of the best boxing coverage you're gonna get right here with my man, ringside reporter himself, Mr. Joe Habib. All right, hit the like button. It's free to do so. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you are familiar with the channel and like what you're seeing, hit the join button to become an official member of this channel. I want to big up Sly Tendencies. He's a member of the channel for nearly 2 years now. So big up Sly. All right, but the minimum you can do here, guys, is click that like button, invite people over to one of the best boxing YouTube channels there is, Ringside Reporter Live. Hit the like button, invite people to the party. Joe.
That's it. I mean, we need to clean this shit up. Let's tell them the truth. Let's stop turning this into TMZ, and let's just stop saying ridiculous things that we have no information and no knowledge of knowing. Stop with the rumors, stop with the bullshit, and let's just be responsible in the things we say from now on moving forward. I mean, we're gonna get it wrong. I get it wrong 50% of the time.
100.
But the times I am right, it's very important. A lot of the points I make are very important. They're very poignant points.
And if you think we're here fanboying for the PBC, far from it. We're just boxing fans. We want boxing to succeed on all platforms, because you know what I think? I think that this particular promotional company is the best in the business. I want to hear what Joe thinks about it himself. I want to hear his views on this, because I think personally that this particular outlet, Top Rank, ESPN Plus, is the best in the business. I've been very impressed with the start to this year. I think we're getting tremendous value for money with Top Rank ESPN Plus. We've got some great fights coming up on the schedule. We're going to talk about all of this, including this man and what he's doing for our great sport of boxing. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. We'll drop the link. You'll be able to join us to discuss this and more boxing on part 2 of today's Saturday special Sucker Punch with yours truly, Maestro, and my brother over there, my big bro, Joe Habib, Mr. Ringside Reporter Live. Thank you for joining us. Click the link to part 2. Join us over there for part 2 on my channel, and we'll talk more boxing. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. I appreciate it. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, consider joining the channel and becoming an official member. Thank you so much.